The sun was falling fast behind the ridges, smearing the sky in bands of red and violet. The desert air carried the dry hush of evening, broken only by the hollow beat of my boots striking dirt. Dust Creek had always been a quiet place, the kind of town where nothing louder than the toll of the church bell disturbed the calm. But that night, a scream cut through the stillness, sharp, raw, desperate. It sliced the silence open like a hunting knife through canvas. Bullet, my horse, snorted behind me, restless as if he felt the same chill crawling through my spine. I pushed harder, lungs burning, heart pounding with a rhythm that matched the rising dread in my gut. And then I saw her. She was sprawled across the railroad tracks, her wrists cut up in rope burn, her dress smeared with dust and blood. She couldn't have been more than 20 years old. Her chest rose in shallow jerks, and her eyes, wide and green, were pools of terror locked on the horizon. The whistle came next, long haunting, the sound of death bearing down. For a moment, everything slowed. The trembling steel beneath us, the growing glare of the train's headlamp, her voice trembling as she tried to speak. Please help me. I didn't answer, didn't need to. I dropped to my knees, ripped the hunting blade from my boot, and slashed through the cords binding her to the rails. The vibration under us was violent now, like the earth itself was warning of what was coming. With one arm, I hauled her up against me, her small frame shuddering, and together we threw ourselves clear of the tracks just as the locomotive screamed past. The ground shook, a roaring tide of iron and fire thundering into the distance, flinging grit into the air. When silence finally returned, she clung to my arm like she was still dangling on the edge of death. You're safe? I whispered, my own breath ragged. But her eyes told a different story. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring toward the hills beyond town, the shadows stretching long and mean across the ridgeline. And the look on her face told me plain. Whatever had tied her to those tracks was still out there. Who did this? I pressed. Her lips trembled, parted, but no words came. She just shook her head, hard. It wasn't fear of me. No, this was something darker, someone worse. Before I could demand more, the night ripped open with the sound of gunfire. 3 shots. Quick, sharp, coming from the north side of town, near the saloon. She flinched violently, her fingers digging into my arm like claws. My instinct screamed, the same instincts that had kept me alive through ambushes, showdowns, and nights where the wrong card could mean a bullet. Whoever had put her on those rails wasn't finished. My hand went to the Colt at my hip, the familiar weight steadying me. My eyes swept the dark hills, my ears straining for the whistle of the desert wind. Can you ride? I asked her. She hesitated, then nodded. Her hands trembled as I lifted her onto Bullet's saddle. Good, I muttered, swinging up behind her. We rode hard into town, the sun nearly gone, leaving the streets cast in deep shadows. Voices spilled in the saloon, panic shouts rising with the last echoes of the gunfire. Faces turned as we thundered down the main road. The girl clinging to me, dirt streaking her cheeks. I reined up in front of Doc Avery's place, my heart still hammering. By now half the town had gathered, whispering, pointing, their faces pale as they saw who I carried. Get the sheriff. I barked. A boy ran off without hesitation. Doc Avery stepped out, glasses low on his nose, hands stained with the work of the day. One look at her bruises was enough. He ushered her inside, and I followed. She sat trembling under the lantern light as the doc cleaned her wounds, her eyes darting to every shadow, as though danger might crawl through the walls at any second. The door creaked open. Sheriff Clay stepped inside. Tall, broad-shouldered, a man carved from stone. But when his eyes landed on her, his face cracked. "Emma!" His voice broke. The girl lifted her head, and in that moment I understood. She was Emma Clay, the sheriff's only daughter, the one who had vanished 2 nights earlier without a trace. Clay's expression hardened into steel. "Who did this to you?" Emma's lips trembled. She opened her mouth, then shut it again, shaking her head with tears burning in her eyes. She couldn't say it, wouldn't say it. The sheriff's jaw clenched. He turned to me. "Tell me what happened." I gave him the story straight, from the scream in the hills to the ropes on the tracks and the gunfire that chased us back. His eyes narrowed, his knuckles whitening around the rifle he carried. Black Spur, he muttered, the name dripping like venom. The words made my stomach tighten. Everyone knew the Black Spur gang. Killers, thieves, devils on horseback. They ruled the hills with lead and fire. And now they had made it personal. "They'll come for her again," Clay said, loading his rifle with hands that didn't shake, though his voice carried fury. "And for anyone who stands in their way." I met his gaze, steady as iron. "Then we'll be ready." But deep down I knew the truth. This was only the beginning. By dawn, Dust Creek wasn't the same town it had been the night before. Word spread faster than wildfire in dry grass. By the time the sun broke over the hills, everyone knew. The girl I'd carried off the rails was Emma Clay, the sheriff's only daughter, snatched by the Black Spur gang, saved by nothing more than a blade and luck. Men and women gathered on the streets, their faces pale, their voices hushed. Some looked at me like I was a savior. Hero, they whispered, but I didn't feel like one. I hadn't put down the devils who tied her there. All I'd done was snatch her from their jaws. Sheriff Clay stood on the porch of his office, his jaw set hard, eyes scanning the horizon like a man waiting for judgment to ride out of the hills. His hand never strayed far from the rifle leaning against the wall. "They won't let this go," he said flatly, not even looking my way. "They'll come back for her. And for you." I didn't bother arguing. I'd seen gangs like Black Spur before, bloodthirsty proud, and too stubborn to let a challenge slide. The air itself seemed to hum with waiting. And then, around noon, the storm came. Dust rose on the northern ridge. Hooves thundered closer, a dark line of riders etched against the burning sky. From the second-story window of the saloon, I counted 7 of them. Wide-brimmed hats pulled low, rifles slung across their backs, riding like they owned the land beneath them. Emma stood beside me, trembling despite the heat pouring through the glass. She clutched my arm, her knuckles white. Her voice was small, cracked, and full of a pain I couldn't name. "You should have let me die." I turned to her, jaw hard. "Not a chance." Her eyes searched mine, but I didn't flinch. Maybe she thought saving her had doomed the whole town. Maybe she thought she was just a burden. But I hadn't dragged her from those tracks, just to regret it later. The riders slowed as they reached the street, their horses restless, snorting clouds into the tense air. For one breath, silence reigned. Then a shot cracked like thunder. The bullet whistled past my head, splintering wood. Dust Creek erupted into war. Men dug behind barrels, women screamed, and children were yanked into cellars as glass shattered and was splintered under the gang's first volley. The quiet streets turned into a battlefield of smoke and fire. I hit the dirt behind a water trough. Colt steadied my hand, eyes sharp for any movement. Sheriff Clay was already out in the open, barking orders, his rifle spitting fire with deadly calm. The townsfolk weren't soldiers, but desperation makes men fierce. A few grabbed hunting rifles, joining the sheriff in ragged defiance. Emma was inside the saloon now, crouched low behind overturned tables. But her wide green eyes still haunted me. Each time I squeezed the trigger, each time I dropped a rider from his horse, I thought of her face, of the terror in it, and the strength still buried beneath it. One outlaw toppled hard, thrown from his saddle. The others wheeled, regrouping with a kind of discipline that told me this wasn't their main strike. No, this was only the opening. The fight dragged on, minutes stretching into hours. Gunpowder stung the air, smoke hung thick over the street, and still we fought. Finally, the riders pulled back, their horses kicking up clouds as they retreated toward the hills. The street was a ruin, glass shattered, walls peppered with holes. But by some miracle, no townsfolk had been killed. Sheriff Clay stood tall in the dust, rifle resting against his shoulder. He didn't smile, didn't relax. His eyes were still locked on the horizon. He knew, same as me, that had only been a warning. That night, the whole town crammed into the church, the only place big enough to hold them all. Fear hung heavy in the air. Voices rose in anger and panic. Some wanted to flee, pack up and vanish before the gang returned. Others, pride stoked by adrenaline, wanted to stand and fight. I sat in the back, hat low, saying nothing. Emma was beside me, hands folded, eyes distant. She hadn't said much since the shooting stopped, but the guilt clung to her like a shadow. Sheriff Clay took the pulpit. His voice was steady, cutting through the noise. They think they can scare us. They think we'll run. But this is our home, and I'll be damned if I let a pack of cutthroats take it from us. A rumble of agreement filled the church. Fear still lingered, but there was fire too. When Clay's eyes found mine, I understood. He wanted me to fight with them, to train them, to bleed beside them if need be. And truth be told, I didn't need convincing. Over the next days, we readied ourselves. Windows boarded, rifles loaded, men posted on rooftops with eyes sharp. I drilled farmers and merchants, taught them how to aim, how to keep calm when leads started flying. Emma helped in her own way, carrying water, tending wounds, moving to the town like a ghost with green eyes. Every time she looked at me, it was like a silent question. By the fourth night, the hills burned. The Black Spur Gang returned, this time in force. Torches lit the horizon, fire glinting off their rifles. They didn't come to scare us now. They came to burn us out. The first buildings caught, flames climbing high, smoke curling into the night sky. But we were ready. The rooftops roared with gunfire, dropping 2 riders before they even reached Main Street. I moved through the shadows, Colt steady in my hand, every shot deliberate. This wasn't chaos anymore. This was war. The fight was savage. Fire lit the sky orange. Bullets shrieked past in the dark. Men screamed as dust turned red. But the townsfolk held the line. Farmers fought like soldiers. Shopkeepers stood shoulder to shoulder with the sheriff. And for every man Black Spur cut down, 2 more townsfolk stood up to answer. When the sun finally crested the hills, pale light spilling across a battered dust creek, the Black Spur Gang was broken, scattered, their dead left in the dirt, their fire snuffed out. The streets were scarred, the town wounded. But Dust Creek still stood. Sheriff Clay planted his rifle, but in the dust, his face grim, his shoulders squared. And in his eyes, for the first time, I saw it, hope. Emma found me near the well, my shirt torn, my hands shaking with the last traces of adrenaline. She didn't speak right away. She just stood there, eyes searching mine. Then softly, so softly I almost missed it, she said, "Thank you." 2 words. Simple, barely a whisper. But in that moment, with the town smoking, the dead buried, and the sun rising over Dust Creek, it felt like the first dawn after a long, merciless night. And I tipped my hat, knowing deep down, this town, this girl, and maybe even myself had been changed forever.